When you were younger, were you ever called a crybaby? Maybe by a sibling? Maybe by a classmate or teammate? Maybe by a relative? Maybe even by a parent? Maybe you called yourself a crybaby and you believed it. As I was reminiscing amidst all the changes that have been happening to me over these past months of August and September, some examples ranging from readjusting to living at home with my parents, moving out of my college apartment in one day and saying goodbye for good, seeing people for the first time in 8 months, watching one of my best friends get married. More than a few painful memories from my childhood have surfaced recently, specifically events where I would get upset or emotional. When I was growing up as a child, I would often cry. If my older brother was being mean, cry. If someone said something somewhat personal, cry. If I failed a test, cry. If I scraped my knee, same result, I would cry. And though I think modern society has become more accepting of displays of emotion, it was highly discouraged with my parents, specifically my mother. To her, crying was weakness, vulnerability was to be discouraged, and this was especially true for boys. Unfortunately, more than a few people today share the same sentiments, that people shouldn't, especially boys, cry or express emotion. My mother would often tell me to stop being such a crybaby, and one of the particular phrases she would direct at me was, "Why are you crying? Are you made of tofu?" I still think about those words today. And so I would often try to bottle my emotions up, only to fail as I began to characterize my tears as weakness through much of my childhood and teenage years. I only saw my father cry once, and that was when my grandfather passed away nearly 9 years ago. After all, some of the phrases like "stop crying like a girl," "stop being such a sissy," "stop being a crybaby," phrases that I heard growing up implied that crying is weakness, that showing emotion is something we should shy away from. I remember when I first heard about Haikyuu, and I thought it was a little odd that these high school athletes were crying after they lost a match. Sure, I can remember crying once when I fouled out of a basketball game in elementary school. But that was when I was a kid. These players are high schoolers, they shouldn't be crying. It's just a game, after all. Or so I thought. Haikyuu has taught and reminded me of a lot of things. Endurance, reflection, the importance of failure, the necessity of an unbreakable will, just to name a few. But one concept that is almost never discussed, or at least so I've seen, is the concept of emotion in Haikyuu, specifically crying, and the expression of negative emotions, especially in the presence of others. And maybe that's another reason why Haikyuu resonates with me, that whether I am a young boy who is bullied, or a high school athlete who just lost a game, that it's okay to cry. And sure, other anime and entertainment mediums do this as well, but these tears usually only occur after some truly momentous occasion, like winning the final battle, or some event of grief. Throughout every season and arc of Haikyuu, this theme is relevant, and one of Haikyuu's best traits is displaying its themes through every character and in every match. When I watch the players cry, whether they were in the game or not, as they share a collective moment of vulnerability and frustration with one another, it makes me feel a certain way that I just can't quite explain. At that moment, they don't care how they're perceived. They just need to express how they feel. I'd imagine not too many of you watch NBA basketball, but last year the Philadelphia 76ers lost to the Toronto Raptors in the last game of their playoff series at the buzzer. One of the star players on the 76ers, Joel Embiid, congratulated his opponents before finally succumbing to his tears as he left the court as defeated, as the loser. More than a few sections of the internet made fun of the fact that he was crying, that he was upset that they lost. And while I was left in awe of Toronto's victory, all I felt was this sense of pain. I didn't have a stake in the game, I'm not a fan of Philadelphia or Toronto. But this cold realization that for every winner, there is a loser. That's why I find the scenes of frustration and emotion in Haikyuu to be so great. Perhaps this is best highlighted in episode 16 of season 1, aptly titled Winners and Losers. In the grand scheme of Haikyuu's plot and story, this particular episode doesn't have a whole lot of importance. But on an emotional level, it sets the stage for what I feel are some of Haikyuu's most important themes. The importance of failure, and that yes, regardless of who you are and what just happened, it's okay to cry. It's okay to express how you feel, especially in the presence of those who care and believe in you. One of the most poignant scenes in all of Haikyuu is at the end of Season 1, when Karasuno eats their after-game meal. The camera is focused away from their faces on purpose, but as it pans out, you notice that nearly every player on Karasuno is crying, regardless of if they had a chance to step onto the court or not. And if I had to be honest, while suppressing your emotions can be a form of strength, it can also result in indifference and apathy, or an ill-timed explosion of emotion. I think true strength is showing vulnerability, expressing your pain in one of the ways that us as humans do. And that's often in the form of crying. Granted, there's a time and place for the tears, as Michimiya notes, and we as viewers notice this throughout all of Haikyuu. Players almost always save their tears, frustrations, and emotions for after the game, when they've had time to reflect on themselves and the journey that they've taken to get where they are. Whether that's Karasuno after their loss to Aoba Josai, whether that's Wakunan after they fall short against Karasuno, whether that's Aoba Josai's seniors and the result of their final high school match, whether that's Shiratorizawa in Season 3. Feeling emotion and expressing it is normal. It's human. I truly don't believe any good comes from withholding emotion. And while there is a time and place for tears, no matter who you are, what you've experienced, and what you need to express is important. Crying is normal. Tears are normal. Expressing frustration is normal. And I'm so grateful that Haikyuu reminded me of that. I just wish I had learned it a little sooner in my life. This isn't my normal outro, but I just wanted to give a big thank you to everyone who watches my videos. I'm honestly still in shock that my Inoshita video has over 7,500 views, and that my Daichi and Sugawara videos are both over 1,000 views as well. It's really encouraging to see how many people really cherish and appreciate these characters. I haven't put out a video in a few weeks since I moved states, but I just wanted you all to know that I'm filled with gratitude for every viewer, every subscription, every comment, every like, every dislike, and every favorite. Have a great week, and I hope to see you all again soon.